Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class, we'll do practice for paper 3 for IBHL Psychology. This is for the latest curriculum. So, this is for those who are appearing for the exams in May 2027 or then onwards. Before we begin, I want you to know that I'm a private tutor for IB Psychology since more than 12 years now. I've tutored students across the globe and I have helped them to gain their sevens in IB Psychology. I tutor both SL and HL. So if you want to schedule your classes with me, my WhatsApp number and email ID are available in the description box and pin comment below. I have previously made a video also on paper 3, in fact, solving all the papers, all the latest papers. In that, I had covered the specimen paper 3. Today, what I'm covering is like an additional practice paper, which I have developed myself. Because for paper 3, it's all about practice. What all you need to practice is different types of graphs. So, for example, you should be able to interpret not only bar graphs, but also bar graphs with error bars, scatter graphs, pie graphs, line graphs, and so forth. You also need to practice answering different types of questions. For example, when we talk about limitations of sources, different sources like the charts that are given us or tables or even written stimuli can be limited in different ways. So you need to practice different types of limitations that may be applicable to different sources. And of course, for the qualitative research that is included, there are three different types of questions that can come: either credibility or bias or transferability. So I felt that no doubt we have practiced the specimen paper already, but we need more practice with diverse sets of data. In fact, I have launched an essay pack, which you can see on the screen in front of you. It's like more like a practice pack. In this, I have included 5 complete sets of paper 3. By this, I mean full stimuli, 5 sets. Each set has all 5 sources, so the entire resource booklet is there in each source. And I have given model answers for each practice set. Of course, that is not the only answer you have to write, but this will be very helpful in practicing possible answers. I have made sure across the sets to include different types of data, graphs, different types of questions for qualitative data, and different possible limitations in the final question, different theories that can be applied. So, if you just go through this whole pack, all the 5 sets, you will have practiced with so much diversity, so many different possibilities, that undoubtedly when your paper comes, you will have very different stimuli in front of you, but you will be able to answer any type of stimuli because you've practiced all types or almost all types. In today's lesson, we will go through the first practice set entirely. So in that, you will be able to see also what type of practice sets are there. I will show you the model answers, we'll discuss them. And then if you're interested, you can purchase the whole pack, which will include the remaining 4 sets also, which we're not going to see in this video. And I will link the purchase, like where you can purchase the pack from, in the description box and pin comment below. Okay, so let's begin then with today's lesson, in which we will do a full walkthrough of a paper 3, a practice paper 3, and we will look at the model answers for all the questions. I will explain to you how these model answers have been written and how they are meeting mark scheme requirements. So let's begin with the first practice set. Okay, these are some standard instructions just like you see on the actual paper. So basically the instructions are about what time duration you have. You can focus on how there is only 1 hour 45 minutes to practice. As we go along, I'll give you possible suggestions for distributing your time, and the total paper is for 30 marks. Many teachers will tell you can't get full 30 marks, but you can if you meet mark scheme requirements. So at least you can come very, very close to getting 30 marks. Paper 3 is very, very scoring. So really take the practice very well so that you can compensate for any marks you're losing in papers 1 and 2 also on paper 3. Before I go ahead, I just want you to know that I will not be able to read every word on the screen. That will make the video impossible to complete. So at any time, if you want to read the entire question which is there on the screen, which would be needed, please take a screenshot or please pause the video for a few minutes, read the whole text, and then come back to my commentary. I will not be able to read out to you everything written on the stimulus. So this is the first stimulus. In case you want to take a screenshot, you can. Okay, and now I'll just explain to you broadly like how we should be looking at the source, what all we need to take into account when we are going over it, like what will be helpful in answering the question. I know that, when you're practicing like we are right now, you are already reading the instructions. Instructions are going to be the same on the actual paper. Still, when you sit for your exam paper, make sure you're reading fully. So read this instruction thoroughly in your exam paper before you go ahead. They are going to give you some static instructions, like you can say at the beginning, answer all the questions. You have no choice here. You have to answer all questions. And that source one is available on the first page only of the question paper. And then the remaining sources are available in the booklet. What is much more important though is what they are telling you below that. That is going to differ from question paper to question paper. Like that's a semi-static question. Every time they are going to tell you that there are sources in this assessment which have been collated, but which claim they have been collated from is going to differ from paper to paper. So we have to read the claim very carefully. So first thing to do when you get your paper 3 for answering is to read the claim fully, understand it, and then only go on to reading source 1. Without reading the claim, do not move to reading source 1. Okay, so now I'm going to highlight the aim. You can see it on the screen. You can see it right here. Okay. The sources in the exam have been collated to assess the claim that individuals with insecure attachment are more likely to seek social status in adulthood as a form of psychological compensation. Understand the claim in your mind. Make sure you've understood it before moving ahead. So after you've read the claim, ask yourself mentally, what are they trying to prove here through these sources? So what they're trying to prove is people who have insecure attachment in their childhood. Let me remember what was insecure attachment. What did I learn in my syllabus? So insecure attachment was either avoidant attachment or anxious attachment, which some children show towards their caregivers, which indicate that they do not have a strong attachment bond with the caregiver. Like what's coming to my mind is the Ainsworth study, strain situation test under human relations, attachment. So what they're saying is those type of children whom I've learnt about, like who are insecurely attached, when they grow up, because they have not got that bonding and that attachment in their childhood, they are going to seek social status. What is social status? Like we've learned in Maslow's hierarchy, for example, under self-esteem, wanting to have a name in society, having a position in society, wanting to be appreciated by others. So that is what they will want as psychological compensation. So they're trying to make up for the attachment, love they did not have in childhood by trying to seek appreciation as adults. Okay, so this is what the claim is telling me. This is what I've understood in my mind. So just to summarize it before I come to source 1, those who have been insecure as babies, to try to make up for the emotional void that they are having, they are going to try to get status in society when they grow up. Okay, I'm sure I've understood the claim now. Now only I will read source 1. See, in paper 3, they are testing like your global skills or, inductive reasoning more than deductive reasoning. Of course, both are there, but more inductive. So whatever concepts you see, you have to immediately start linking back to where I have seen this, what have I learned about this, what am I understanding. Then only you'll be able to make sense of the stimuli that come ahead, and you'll be able to relate them correctly with the claim and do what is required in the paper. So don't leave it for later. Don't think that first I will read all the sources, then I will come back to understand what the claim is. Then you're going in the opposite direction. And what will happen in that is, after you've read the source and then you try to stick it to the claim, you will have missed a lot of important information in the source. Now that the claim is clear in your head, you're using it as a filter or as a lens through which you're going to look at the sources. So you will keep on reading the source in a way that you understand it through the claim you have seen. So right from scratch, when you're reading it, you're able to relate it with what it is intended to be related to. So always go about in the right direction. Don't come in the opposite direction. Okay, I remember in the specimen paper that we had seen, we had a bar graph, and of course, bar graph meaning comparison groups were there, and we were comparing them. I think something to do with anxiety, if I'm not wrong. Here we have a histogram. So, like I was telling in the beginning, you need to practice with different types of graphs. So, here I've included a histogram graph, and we will understand what are particular weaknesses of this type of a graph now. So, this is where practicing with diverse stimuli is going to be very helpful to you. If you've seen my video, if you haven't seen it, watch it now, and then you'll be able to compare. Like there, how I had analyzed the bar graph, and here, how I'm analyzing the histogram. So, when it comes to source 1, always when you look at the source, read the titles. Every word is very important on the question paper and in the booklet. Nothing is to be skipped. And same thing like I've done for the claim, I won't be able to do repeatedly on the video, this will become too long, but keep on understanding what every figure is telling you. In your mind, keep on translating it to what you have learned in the course. So figure 1 is showing some status seeking motivation in adults who have been classified having insecure attachment styles. So what I'm understanding is in this study, somehow they have a sample of people who are known to be insecurely attached as children, and they've just taken a look at how much status seeking they are now doing as adults. For any graph that we have to read the x-axis, y-axis so that we can understand what is represented on it. So x-axis we have the status seeking motivation score, and on the y-axis we have number of participants. So what I'm understanding from the graph is, when it comes to those who have been insecurely attached, we can see a clear like left skew is there. So on the upper side, right side, we can see between 30 to 50 lots of individuals are there, meaning lots of people are seeking status. In fact, if we look at it from this whole range, 20 to 50 on the screen, we can see that those who are insecurely attached, they fall on the upper end. They are quite status seeking. Like on the x-axis, you see these are status seeking scores, and y is number of participants. So lots of them are status seeking. That is what the histogram is representing. As of now, initial inspection, it goes along with the claim. That is only what the claim was telling me. That people who are insecurely attached, they are going to be status seeking. So a lot of them are status seeking. But we will have to consider this later in terms of possible limitations in interpretation. So now we have the questions. One is a static question. Static meaning it's the same across papers. So you'll see in the specimen also this question was there. One issue that limits interpretation of data in source 1. The source 1 data which is there, generally it is there for just the interpretation, the static question, though it can come. They're not saying it won't come for the 15 marker also, but generally it doesn't. So I will explain to you very soon. I'll show you the model answer and explain to you in case of a histogram, how should we look at what issue is limiting interpretation, unlike bar graph. Next, we have a static question again, source 2 data. We will see source 2 very soon. In that, how we can give a conclusion about the claim that was made initially. So that's a 6 marker. I'll explain to you with the model answer how to go about it. So that is not about limitations of the source, that is less of methodological knowledge or in terms of like graph analysis or data table analysis. It's more about using descriptive statistics to evaluate a claim. So different set of skills are needed. Then we have discussed the credibility. This time credibility question, I think in the specimen also it was credibility. Ahead in this practice pack, I also have bias and transferability questions. But definitely this time, which is the source 3 in this paper, and which suggestions for credibility will best apply here as against the specimen paper, we'll be looking at that. Finally, the 15 marker, which is pretty much a static question. They're going to name some sources, typically 2 to 5, though they can take 1 to 5 also. And using any 3 of them, we have to evaluate the initial claim. Remember, the claim is right at the top, just above source 1. And also theories that we have you seen in our syllabus, we have to link those also to the claim along with the sources. So I'm just showing you once again the first page. So this is what we've seen so far. We have looked at the claim, which is the most important thing. The first source we have understood, and we have understood all the questions. Now quickly I'll do a run through of the other sources and then we'll come to the model answers, which is the main thing. So now we have the booklet with us. You can take a screenshot at any time if you need to. This is just the instructions, which are always there ahead of the booklet. Here you just need to be aware that you should open the booklet only when you're instructed to do so. Okay, the claim is repeated on the top for our ease of reading. It's the same claim we have seen before, so I'm not going over it again. Basically, insecure attachment and status gaining in adulthood. Let's look at what is then source 2. On the specimen paper, when we had source 2, we had a table and we had a box and whisker plot. So I had explained to you both, like how to make use of the table as well as box and whisker plot. This time we have only a table. So this time I will show you, if we have only a table, then how we can use that only the table data to make interpretation. Like even if we don't have the box and whisker, so we don't have to judge skew or overlaps, even without that, how we can use a source to evaluate the claim. So basically we're looking at all possible combinations and permutations. Then we have some qualitative data. Source 3 is always qualitative data. So I think in the specimen, if I'm not mistaken, it was something to do with observation. This time we are looking at semi-structured interviews. So how semi-structured interview can be evaluated, like improved in its credibility, I will explain to you that. Right now I'm just saying you broadly about the sources. When I show you the model answers, I'll keep referring back. I'll keep coming back to the sources and tell you what you should be noting. In source 4, this time we have a pie graph. We have not seen a pie graph on the specimen paper. So how you should go about reading it? Mainly we are going to use it in the 15 marker, but there we need to read it and link it to the answer. So how to do that, I will explain to you today. And for source 5, we have scatter graph. Last time also we had a correlational analysis. I think it was source 4. But in that we had the coefficients in front of us and we had the scatter graph. What if we don't have the coefficients directly? What if we have only the scatter graph, only the diagram? Then how we can use it to answer the 15 marker? That is what we'll be looking at today. So basically I've done a run through on how this set of data differs from the specimen set of data. Now, taking one at a time, one question at a time, keeping the model answer in front of us, we will look at how we should study the sources as well as how we should meet mark scheme requirements in answering. So these are the answers. In my practice sets, I have included answers in question answer format at the end. So first, as you should do in this video lesson also, write your own answers for all the questions, and then just for checking whether your answers are formatted, structured in the correct way, whether they're meeting the requirements or not, then look at the answers. So don't use the practice pack in a way that you just keep on reading the sources and you keep on reading the answers. Whenever we just read things, we just get a feeling that we know everything. Oh, this answer I could have written, yeah, this is easy. Actually write and see whether you can write it or not. Then look at the answers and see whether your answers are structured in the same way or not. Test yourself. Make the most of the pack that is being given to you. These answers, before we get into them, I want to say very strongly, they are not the only possible answers. There are too many answers possible. I will give you more suggestions also. Like this answer we will use to understand the requirements, but I'll tell you what points you could have given instead. So don't take them as definite answers, or these answers if I write then only I will get marks. Not at all. Even the mark scheme cannot give you an exhaustive list of possible answers. But what you need to focus on the structure, the way of writing, the way the content is presented. How is it answering the question correctly? How is it using the data correctly? Focus on the how, not on the what. What is written I have to memorize? No. How I have to answer is what I have to learn from this section. Okay, so I had shown you the first question was about, it's written here also, interpretation of data in source 1. What is the issue that limits it? Meaning, when we took a look at the data, when I showed it to you also the histogram, I showed you, yeah, it's looking like it's in line with the claim. So it is looking like there is a left skew and most people on the upper end. But why should we be cautious? That is what they're asking us here. Like, why should we not take it as complete proof that the claim is correct? What is stopping us from taking it as perfect proof that what we have claimed is right? So, this is the way we understand the question in our mind first. Next, before answering, we take a look at the marks. Okay, it's for 3 marks. There's no hard and fast rule as to the word count or how many sentences we should write or something. Strictly my suggestion, what works best from my years of experience, not to be taken as a rule set in stone. 5 to 6 brief sentences to answer this one, like one paragraph. Very importantly, in these 5 to 6 sentences, naming of the issue. They've asked for one issue that limits interpretation. Name the issue correctly. Can you see here in bold what is written? Absence of a control group, naming the issue. It should not be the examiner is reading sentence after sentence, can't understand what is the point you're trying to make. Directly name the point first. This is the issue in interpreting the data. So, one, that should be there. Second, cite the data. Don't be vague, don't be ambiguous in what you are claiming. Histogram shows that many people are status seeking. Many people who are insecure are seeking status. What is many people? They've given you a histogram, they've given you an x axis, y axis, the numbers are there. Why not see the highlighted yellow portion? Why not give those numbers? Why not say this is the number, this is the data which is showing that most insecure people are seeking attention, right? So, side data. See, whatever I'm writing on the screen, these are things about how to write the answer rather than what to write. Okay, and what else? Like I told you in the beginning, in my opinion, 5 to 6 sentences, that's just a recommendation. Naming the issue should definitely be there, citing the data should definitely be there. Every point must be highly relevant to the stimulus. No generic answers. This is a rule that I cannot emphasize enough, not only for paper 3, paper 1, 2, 3. Nowhere in IB syllabus must you give generic answers. If a single histogram is there, then we come to know only about one group. We don't come to know about the other group. We don't know how the other group is performing. What are you talking about? Why are you giving general answers? Which histogram? This histogram is that. The histogram that is given is of insecurely attached people. We do not have histogram of securely attached people. So instead of generic answer, I'm talking about histograms in general. I'm talking about this specific histogram which is given to me here. That should be your tone. So no generic answers, specific answers, specifically applying to the data given. And a very definitive statement you have to give. Towards the end, which you can see is bolded over here. This which you can see. A definitive statement on whether the claim is supported or not. Of course, it is not, we are looking at a limitation. So, what exactly has limited supporting the data? We have named it already, but finally, in an explanation, in a conclusion, this is how the interpretation of data has got limited. A definitive statement has to be there on that. So, this is my advice for how you should write the 3 marker. Let's come back to the source ones quickly, though we have seen it, and then I won't be able to read out the whole model answer, but I will take you through a proper walkthrough of the model answer written here. Right now, what I've given you is like general advice to answer any 3 marker. Sorry, this was source 1, which was done on the question paper itself, not in the resource booklet. In my practice pack, I have deliberately included grayscale graphs. I could have included color graphs very easily. Nowadays, it's not a big deal with so much technology available, to have colored graphs and all. And that is something I do for AP psychology. I present colored graphs. But because in the IB, we know that in the paper, we are going to get grayscale graphs only. So better to familiarize students with those. We are psychology teachers, we know that there is context dependent, state dependent learning. So always have students in the same context and state in which they're going to answer finally. This advice I'm giving to my fellow teachers. I know lots of teachers are watching my videos, and many of them must be planning to buy these packs also for their class practice. So I want you to know that this grayscaling of the graphs is deliberately included. And my suggestion, just as a fellow teacher, do not make your students practice with colored graphs. You might feel it's not a very big deal, but students somehow do get dependent on things looking attractive. If nothing else, some of them are relying on the colored keys also, and then they get very confused in the paper when they see grayscale. They get panicky. Oh, this is so washed out, I don't know how to connect with this. So make sure they have practice with dull looking grayscale graphs only, so that in the paper it's easy for them to answer. So just give them the right exposure. Okay, I went a little on tangent, but let's come back to source 1. Source 1, looking at it again, we have to think of limitations. The one which is written, the model answer is right. When you see a histogram as against the bar graph which we had seen in the specimen paper, we have only one histogram, like for group 1. So there is a single group, they told us also in the text above. So there is this one group who is insecurely attached, and how many of them are status seeking, that is represented. So the claim is that people who are insecurely attached, they look out for status to get compensation. But maybe there's nothing peculiar or special in what they are doing. If we also had a histogram of people who are securely attached, then we would be able to compare and say, okay, only those who are insecurely attached, they are the ones who seek status. What if securely attached people also have a similar histogram? Then it has nothing to do with insecure attachment. When maybe humans in general are like this, that they seek a lot of status. So because there is absence of a comparison histogram here, that is why we are limited in interpreting the source. Like, is it telling us truly that insecurely attached people are the ones who seek attention? Maybe not. Maybe everyone is doing this. So that is only what you can see in the model answer. In the model answer, it's put very like academically in a good structure. So first, it's been named that there's no comparison group. What I explained to you, definitely written absence of comparison group. Because though we see that there are as many as 30 participants, if you count the frequencies between 31 to 50, I'll just show you again very quickly, it'll be easier to show. Like here you can see this figure. If you add up, what you will see is there are 30 participants between 31 and 40, and 15 between 41 and 50. So as many as 45 are there on the upper end between 31 and 50 who are seeking status. But what we are not able to conclude from this is this something like unusually high? Is this something what securely attached people do not show? We are not able to say that. So we are not able to say that insecure attachment is associated with greater. The key word here is greater status seeking motivation. That we are not very sure of. Because still we compare one thing with another. How can we use a comparative term like greater? Okay, now what other possible limitations are there besides this that we could have given? Like, absence of comparison group is the most limiting factor. But you can also talk about absence of sample details. They haven't told us, for example, how many participants they have studied to come to this data, which we saw in the histogram. What if it's a small sample that they have surveyed? Then it will not represent all people with insecure attachment in the population. Or what if it is people just from one culture who have been represented? So in these cases, if the sample is small, or it is not culturally representative, or it's only of a certain gender, like only males or females have been represented, in these cases, we won't be sure that the high status seeking pattern that we are seeing on the histogram will apply to all insecurely attached people in the population. So we won't be able to make generalizations which will limit us. Another possibility is that they haven't told us how they have got the data. What was the operationalization of status seeking? Did they observe participants in some way to see whether they were status seeking or not? What if they've used something like self report data? people wouldn't admit easily to be status seeking. So maybe actually the trend is even higher. Maybe people who are insecurely attached, they are very, very attention seeking. But what we are seeing is fairly attention seeking. Like not everyone is concentrated on 41 to 50. There's a good distribution between 31 to 50. So maybe that's not the case. If they've taken self report data, people have not honestly reported how sensation seeking, then that's why we are getting this pattern. In that case, we don't have valid data. That would be a big limitation. I'm sure there are many other possibilities. I won't be able to share them exhaustively in this video, but I just want you to know that there are many other answers that you can write. Okay, let's come to question 2. Again, we have the question right here. This is that static question. So source 2, we have to interpret it and see what are we coming to know about the claim from that source. Let me put the table again in front of you. So here you can see we have a table in which we have the range. So we have maximum and minimum of status seeking. Status seeking is the dependent variable here. We have the median. So we have the midpoint of status seeking. We have mean, the average, and we have standard deviation, the variability in status seeking. But which groups are we comparing? For that, we have to read the text, which I won't be able to read entirely now. Let's just take a quick look at it. See, we have some participants in the first group. They were asked to read about a childhood experience in which they felt rejected, unsupported, and some people in another group who thought about a typical day at work. So basically, this is a study in which we have one group of participants who are made to read something about, they're made to write something about a childhood experience in which they felt their caregiver didn't love them and they were rejected. So they're being primed basically into feeling unloved and unattached. And the other group is just writing about a normal day at work. So they are like in a neutral state, nothing to do with attachment. Basically, they are like a control group. After they do that, then they are asked to complete some questionnaire on which we see whether they are status seeking or not. So on that questionnaire, now what scores they have got, that is given on the table. If the claim is true that insecurely attached people, they seek status, then of course we should see a higher mean, a higher median, less variability across the two groups. We know, we have learned descriptive statistics. We know central tendency measures like mean and median and all. They just help us to uh, see the best representation of a whole group. So the best representation of the insecure group should be higher than that of the secure group. They should be the ones who should be higher on all measures of attention sensi. What is it? It's status seeking. I'm sorry, status seeking. So that trend we should observe. So are we observing that trend or not? That we need to check out on the table. So as I've told you in the beginning, keep reading the source, keep understanding it, keep remembering what statistics tell us, and then look at the data. Then you're able to answer better. So now let's look at the model answer for this. Okay, general tips on how to write the 6-marker first. Again, no generic answers. I won't keep repeating that, but make sure you're linking to the stimulus given. Don't write general points. Make sure to cite all statistics in this answer. So many statistics are given, right? Mean, median, standard deviation. Make sure to interpret each of these. It's not only about showing that you know all the statistics, it makes your life also easier. Otherwise, you keep on wondering, have I covered everything? Have I missed anything? So if you just take it as like a monotonous thing, I have to make sure I write about the means also, about the median also, then you're at ease. You don't need to memorize any particular format. The things are right there, I just have to interpret each of these. So make sure you're interpreting all the statistics, you're explaining what every statistic is showing about insecure and secure attachment very specifically, no generic answers. And break into paragraphs. I would suggest my breaking of paragraphs similar to what I did in the specimen paper. Central tendency measures can be in one paragraph, variability measures can be on the other, and finally there can be a conclusion, because after all we have to judge the overall claim that is made. So at the end we can have a nice conclusion that okay, looking at all these statistics, this is what we can say about the claim. And for like a word count and all, again nothing has been released by the IB for word count, but I would suggest this is like a double answer. That was a 3 marker, this is a 6 marker, it becomes a double. So there, if I've recommended 5 to 6 short sentences, here I would recommend 10 to 12. Should be enough. One thing is, if you are doing it correctly, you are interpreting all the statistics, you don't need to bother about word count. The questions are formulated only in such a way that if you exhaust everything, you will not exceed that 10 to 12 sentences. You will meet that much only. So many students fuss a lot over, word count, sentences, and all. Actually doesn't matter so much, because just make sure you're covering everything. Be more focused on that. You will come to the correct word count. Okay, so I'll do a quick run through of this. It's very obvious, the answer. And now we are getting the hang of it, because we've seen the previous, we've got the tone of writing and all. So what we have to do is first begin with like a definite stative. Yes, the findings are supporting the claim, and then statistic by statistic, how they are supporting. First looking at the means, because generally we interpret the means first in psychology, and these are scores, they're on interval data. Definitely, the insecure group has a higher mean in status seeking than the control group. So we cite the numbers again, like I told you in the previous answer. Higher mean, greater mean, just give the numbers. Median score is also higher. Mean has already told us that on an average, one group, insecure group, has higher status seeking than what is the median telling us. Median is telling us it's not a matter of few extreme scores. The mean is justified, it's supported by the median, because if the mean was only because of outliers or extreme scores, then the median would tell us otherwise. But the median is also aligned with the mean, it's telling us the same thing. So we get more confidence that our results are supporting the claim. Then coming to the range, again the higher maximum score we get to see in insecure group. The person whoever has given the high status seeking score in that is much above the person in the secure group who has got the highest status seeking score. So this is how we can interpret the central tendency measures. Then coming to variability. Standard deviations are similar. First, the main difference also similar. We have said that, not compulsory, even if you don't give, it's okay, but it's a good observation. Then standard deviations are similar, very close to each other. Like despite the range which we saw is very high, maximum minimum are quite different from each other. But the standard deviations are just 5.9 for insecure and 5.5 for secure, meaning 5.9 for experimental and 5.5 for the control group. This tells us that the differences that we are seeing, they are not because of extreme variability within groups. They are because of the variability between groups. So we get more confidence in the results. So overall, what we can say is, yes, the claim is supported. All the statistics given in the data source are all supporting the claim that is made. And we can conclude, like I've told you, then give a definitive statement. Insecure attachment is likely to play a role in increasing desire for status in adulthood. Never say it proves the thing. This source also has limitations, though they haven't asked us for them, but every source has limitations. So we can't say it proves it or it definitely supports it, but strong likelihood, or it may be the case, that we can conclude. So put it in those terms like it is put here. Okay, so that is what we can write for source 2. I also want you to keep contrasting. Like I told you, in specimen paper, there was this box and whisker plot, and I had told you how you can look at skew and possible overlap between the two boxes or the two sets of data. Here we need not do any of that, because only the table was given. So if only the table is given without box and whisker plots or any graph for that matter, still we can write a full 6 marker like this. That data is sufficient to put down a full 6 marker. We can't say exactly what the IB will come up with also, because this is the first year and every year it's going to be different. Paper 3 has a very broad range. So we can't say definitively they'll give this graph only or this table only. So we have to be ready to practice with any sort of data that is there in front of us. Now let's come to source 3. I told you source 3 will be qualitative data, and the question we had seen for it is to do with credibility. Even if they ask, how we can reduce bias or increase transferability, the reduced bias is almost the same as credibility. You can see in my further practice sets. And transferability is pretty close, not exactly the same, but pretty close, because It's not the generalizability of quantitative data. It is qualitative data. Can it apply to different settings? So it becomes close to credibility. So what we are learning you will help you with other types of questions also. Okay. What our mindset has to be there is we have to look at the source. So we look at source 3 and we have to think of what is reducing the credibility of this source and how it can be improved. We know broadly for qualitative data what reduces credibility is subjectivity, that we know. But let's also look at the specific method used here, semi structured interview. So, whatever we've learned about research methods, semi structured interview in particular, let's bring all that to mind. Semi structured interview means on the spot questions can be developed, which are called like follow up questions. So, there the interviewer might be biased in what type of questions they're asking. It is interviews, so after all, whatever the participant says, they're going to listen to that and then they're going to interpret it as per their own subjective biases. So these type of things are going to come in the picture in interview. So we know these problems are going to be there, how to overcome these problems. Again, I can't read the full source, but these are some of the themes they found. So definitely when they say they found these themes, they've done thematic analysis. Success is seen as proving personal worth by those who have been insecurely attached, or people say when they receive admiration from others, they feel valued or they feel worthy. Okay, these are 18 adults who have been interviewed using a validated attachment question. Even these things are important, these specifics in looking at credibility. 18 adults is a small sample for sure, though we are not looking at generalizability, but still, in terms of population validity or credibility, it can be a thing. Of course, practically for interview, we can't expect more than 18, but still 18 becomes less representation. Also, attachment questionnaire is used, self-report is used, so self-report issues can come into credibility. So keeping all this in mind, let's come to answer 3. Okay, general advice first. My suggestion my suggestion is always depth over breadth. I gave you something similar in the specimen paper also. Take 2 to 3 suggestions, don't take more than that. Instead of thinking, one suggestion per mark, so I have to give 6 suggestions to improve credibility, take 2 to 3, elaborate sufficiently on each, break it into 3 paragraphs like you can see in front of you, elaborate on each and justify credibility. Do not just keep on pointing the weaknesses of credibility. One problem is questionnaire might be biased, one problem is thematic interview analysis might be biased. Improve. How do you improve the credibility? That is what they're asking you. So make sure your suggestions are there. How to improve it. In your mind, you're thinking, okay, interview is there, bias will be there. But when you're writing, how to overcome this bias is what you have to write. You don't have to say this bias. They have not asked you what are the biases here. Okay. Rest standard uh, suggestions which I've given you for the other answers also. Don't be generic. Uh, Write only as much as is needed for 6 marks, so 10 to 12 sentences like the previous one. You have limited time. In 1 hour 45 minutes you have to read everything also and you have to write the answers, so don't give excessive time to any answer. Quick run through I'll do now. I'm also running out of time a little now. So one thing is definitely member checking. All these standard things you have learned in the textbook, these are ways of improving credibility, so just keep on applying to this source. Because it is interview, because interview summaries have to be read and people are saying things like they really feel valued and all, it should not be the researchers just assuming that because they already know that insecure people are likely to feel less worthy, so whatever they are saying I'm taking at, they are feeling less valued. So what they can do is they can ask the participants to read the themes that they have come up with after they have come up with them, and the participants can just give their feedback whether they truly meant to say what the research has interpreted or not. So this is member checking. Researcher triangulation can be done because one researcher is likely to be biased in interpreting data. Again, we can give some examples of the themes which they have come up with: seeking admiration, providing personal worth. So we can have another researcher also who tests the same codes or the same themes, and if both the researchers or say multiple researchers, all of them agree that yes, these are only the themes that are emerging, then we can be confident that the researcher's judgment is accurate. If they are alone and only they are coming up with this theme, so they might be biased. Finally, collecting data from more sources that can be suggested. Uh, the researcher could also like do some sort of observation or questionnaire along with this, and then just this is like source triangulation. So they can cross verify whether from all sources they are coming to know that participants are sensation seeking or not, status seeking or not. So that will increase credibility, because if they are going only by this interview that they are conducting, then it might be that there's something peculiar about the way they're asking questions that is leading to these type of responses. But in other methods also, when questions are phrased differently or when they're just directly observing participants, if the same thing comes out that they are status seeking, then it is unlikely it is because of any particular method that is being used. It is genuinely reflecting participants' status seeking behavior. Other possibilities, what you could suggest, one which I don't like to give so much because it becomes too like cliche, but you can give it sample. Population validity could be improved by including a larger sample than 18 and representative of more cultures and all. That will increase credibility. Other things could be the standard ones. We've already seen researcher source triangulation. There could also be data triangulation. They could obtain data from other family members, asking them about how status seeking this person has been, and cross check with that. Other possibilities could be that I forgot what we call it specifically. When the researcher has like this sort of declarative statement that they make first to be that I have these sort of biases generally. For now, I'm just calling it list of biases. I can't remember the exact term for it. And they make that list first, then they conduct the interview, and then they cross check whether these biases have come out in the interview or not. It is a part of reflexivity. I can't remember the term reflexivity right now, but I forgot the specific name for it. Like they list out their biases, and then after having their interpretation of the current interview, they check whether any of their biases are coming out in that interview. So for now, just take it as reflexivity. You could suggest that also. Okay, let's come to the last question. That is about using multiple sources to substantiate the claim. We have not looked at two sources, so very quickly we'll look at them. Rest we have seen already. Source 1 we don't have to take right now. Source 4 is a pie graph. In that we can see there are like people who have been interviewed again, I believe. Surveys conducted with these people, and we have come to know whether they're securely or insecurely attached. Now, those who are securely attached, what are their reasons for pursuing a career, has been compared with those who are insecurely attached. What are their reasons for pursuing a career? This could have been represented as a bar graph also, but because it's in percentages, a pie graph has been preferred. Why I'm telling you bar graph thing? Because you treat it in the same way. You use it for comparison. So for example, let's see one category, personal growth and fulfillment. It is the darkest shade here. If you look at people who have secure attachment, 42%, most of them, like when we look at the pie chart, immediately we can see the largest section. So it's the most common reason for people who are securely attached to seek career. They want personal growth. Whereas in insecurely attached, it's the smallest sector. Only 20% of them seek a career for personal growth. Whereas if we see the lightest shade is social status and prestige, those who are securely attached, very few of them, only 12%. Least commonly, they select a career just to get status. But those who are insecurely attached, for them, it's the dominant one. 34% of them are seeking a career just for social status and prestige. Okay, that's one. Definitely take the screenshot and read fully. Coming to source 5. Scatter plot is given. Attachments insecurity scores are given on the x-axis, status seeking on the y-axis. We are seeing an upward line, positive correlation, quite steep, not very steep, but quite steep. So moderate relation we can see between attachment insecurity and status seeking. The more insecurely attached the person, the more that they seek status. So all the sources, even before the writing the answer, we know they are supporting the claim. Of course, there are limitations in them, which we have to consider in the essay, as we did for answer 1. And of course, they do not fully support the claim 100%. So what limitations are then? Their methods, we have to include that also. Also, use knowledge, your own knowledge. My recommendation, at least 2 theories which we have learned in the syllabus we should use. We can use more also, of course, but please don't use less than that. show both sources interpretation also and your knowledge also. Otherwise, it becomes too lopsided. Like you're just using the sources, you're not showing your own knowledge. Okay, so my suggestion for writing the 15 marker, plan out. Biggest suggestion. Before writing, have an outline in your mind or roughly make the outline with a pencil on the paper. Out of 2 to 5 sources which you're going to take, which you're most confident about, take those. And from your theories, which theories you're going to use to answer this. So I'm going to use sources 2, 3, and 4. Just I can use all also, but it's okay. And theories, like just for a depth approach, I'm taking only 3. And for theories, definitely attachment theory will come to mind. What else will come to mind, right? So Bowlby's theory, internal working model, that is coming to my mind. Because if from childhood there's some attachment issue that is being carried out to adulthood, internal working model. And also self-determination to some extent, Deci and Ryan's theory. The larger topic of HL extension from which this is coming is motivation. So already I'm trying to think about that theory. And it is very closely related because this is about status. So seeking competence, seeking autonomy in this way through a career, that directly aligns with self-determination theory. There are little far off theories also which can be cited, like say Maslow's theory, self-esteem, or Ainsworth's research, just for the definition part of what is insecure attachment. So if I have to only brainstorm and give you further ideas, I can name those theories, but I'll strongly recommend against them because these are the 2 theories which we will be able to justify, as I'll show you in the model answer. The others will just be partial accounts. They will not explain the answer fully. So one is plan out which sources and all you're going to take. Structure wise, in the beginning only, whether the claim is supported or not. Are you outrightly rejecting the claim? Whether you're supporting it or you're supporting it to an extent. First, write that clearly in the first paragraph. Then break down into 3 paragraphs, in each of which you use the sources. Then 2 paragraphs in each of which you use the knowledge or the theories you have learned. And then finally, a reconciliation paragraph. Before that, a limitations paragraph, in which you cite like why this claim is not 100% supported by the sources and theories. Mainly it's about the sources, not the theories. And then finally, conclusion. Overall, after considering all sources and all theories, what can we say about the claim, whether it's getting substantiated or not? So what is the structure? Just quickly revising. First statement of support, no support, or moderate support. Generally, it's going to be moderate support. Then 1 paragraph each, citing each of the 3 sources that we are using. If you're using 4 sources, 4 paragraphs. And then next, at least 2, my recommendation, 2 paragraphs of 2 theories that you're using. Next, a paragraph of limitations, pointing out what are the problems in taking the sources as full evidence. And lastly, a conclusion. Now, considering everything, what can we say about the claim? So it's a very simple structure as such. You can have a total of say 30-35 sentences for this answer, given it's 15 marks. It's like your 1C or 2B 15 markers, so lengthwise that much. But again, if you just focus on, okay, I have to cover 3 sources, 2 theories, limitation, conclusion, it'll automatically meet the word count requirement. So don't worry about that. Let's quickly go over this. There is considerable evidence, but not all evidence is conclusive. So moderate support is there. For source 2, this is the table source. Already we have seen in second answer, we have written about it. Only thing to be added here, like besides the mean, median, everything is supporting the claim, it is an experimental design. There's random allocation. They are made to write something, and then we are coming to know that insecurely attached people seek more status. This is the strongest bit of evidence that we have, source 2, because that is the only experimental one which we are having. And we know experiment is the only cause effect research method that we have in psychology. Source 3, this is the qualitative one. Definitely, again, it aligns with the claim because the themes that have emerged are that only, that insecure people are seeking status. But the problem is that a few of the participants, like if we see the last theme in that source, they have suggested that they are not seeking status also. So within the data only, there's conflict as to what people are seeking. Other limitations of the source I have put on later. Then as far as source 4 is concerned, This is the pie chart source. In that, like I pointed out to you while showing you the source, it is aligned with the claim because 34% of insecure attached people are seeking careers for status. Now, coming to the knowledge, attachment theory, Bowlby's theory, internal working model is definitely supporting the claim because these people have felt worthless in their childhood. So, as adults now, they are seeking to compensate by getting status. And that is what Bowlby told us, that internal working model has become negative of them. That is why, even in adulthood, they are still seeking support. Self determination theory can explain because when people are insecurely attached, they want status and achievement as an alternative source of self worth. Like somewhere relatedness has been deprived in childhood, so they are trying to make up with the other two sources, competence and autonomy. But of course, like I told you, we have to cite the limitations also. Source 3, which was qualitative, was self report. The answers may be out of desirability. So people might have hidden how much they seek status in adulthood, so we might have underreporting of data. Source 4 was also a survey, similarly self reported. The problem with both these sources are when in adulthood we see people are seeking status, it might actually have nothing to do with how insecurely attached they were in childhood. Rather, their current self esteem, their personality right now, or their culture pushing them towards seeking status in career. Any of these reasons could also be there for status seeking. So, in conclusion, overall, though, we can say that yes, the claim is supported, but only to a moderate degree because all the status seeking and all can be explained by alternative explanations, like I just pointed out. Last thing is, if you want to take source 5 also in this, the scattergram, definitely take it. It is also aligned with the claim. There is a moderate positive correlation, like I explained to you. But in the limitations, do put down that it's just correlational, not cause effect relation. So, the same thing which I have pointed out here, other reasons, self esteem, personality, or cultural values could be mediating the relationship. I hope you can see how adding that source 5 is redundant. It's the same like what the other sources are telling us. That is why my suggestion, take only 3 sources. The fourth source adds nothing to what we have already said. It's redundant. So just take 3 so that you can explain fully and you don't limit yourself in word count. I'm sorry I have to rush out now. So that's all I have for this video. And I will come back very soon with another video. I forgot to tell you, in this practice pack, this was motivation and technology, motivation and human relationships. Like that, across the 5 practice sets, I have covered 5 different topics. So, motivation, culture, technology, different combinations have been covered. I'll see you soon with another video. Till then, keep on practicing with this and my specimen videos. Happy learning. Goodbye.